Good morning. My name is Nathaniel Cole. I started my journey with Urban Alliance 10 years ago as a high school intern at the World Bank. Today, I am honored to serve as the executive director for our DC program. I stand on the shoulders of board members, partners, Urban Alliance staff, and alum who have paved the way for what Urban Alliance is today, and I thank each and every one of you. My journey from intern to executive director has allowed me the unique experience and opportunity to see the benefits of early employment firsthand. It also has allowed me to witness the transformative impact of Urban Alliance internships. As a teenager, I would imagine what it would be like to enter into a professional environment. A suit, a tie, going into a conference room, sitting at the large table, and making hard decisions. And this was as an intern. But Urban Alliance quickly taught me that I had to master filing, faxing, photocopying, and attention to detail first, okay? Talking about an adjustment. But Urban Alliance really transformed my professional aspirations into real experiences. And every step of the way, they coached me. I am blessed to be able to do that for DC youth today. In a moment, one of the most amazing young men I've had the opportunity to work with will introduce Vice President Biden. Jonathan Hill is a 2012 alum of Urban Alliance and a sophomore at Morehouse College. Jonathan represents Urban Alliance young people. He has a relentless drive and exceptional talent. And Jonathan, like many UA youth, came to Urban Alliance looking for a platform to be able to succeed. With guidance from Urban Alliance and support from his mentors, Jonathan, like Urban Alliance alum and interns, are able to showcase their talents and are able to thrive as young professionals. Urban Alliance youth, similar to my 17-year-old self, were hungry and are hungry for opportunities to showcase their abilities. They are willing to fight against challenges and overcome obstacles in order to create and establish a better life for themselves, but they can't do it alone. With all of the potential that our young people have, they need opportunity coupled with support, and that comes from companies like yours and organizations and programs like Urban Alliance. When the two come together, the result is something amazing. It is a generation of young people with limitless potential and a commitment to community. Jonathan represents such a generation. We are honored to have offered him experiences and encouragement to support his professional trajectory. It is my pleasure to introduce a young man that we should all take note of, Mr. Jonathan Hill.
Good morning, good morning. I had a stool up here, I'm kind of small, but I hope everyone can see me and hear me. It gives me great pleasure to be here today. I'd first like to thank Mr. Nate Cole for all your support, all the hard work that Urban Alliance has done for me. And it's going to be an amazing opportunity to introduce the Vice President today. 3 weeks ago, the United States Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, traveled to Atlanta for his annual bus tour. Him and the First Lady came and spoke to us students, and they empowered us. They instilled in us the morals that this administration sees for us to move forward. But the day before, I toured the Atlanta Civil Rights Museum, where I heard one of the most profound speeches by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. titled The Drum Major Instinct. In this speech, he defined himself. He defined how he wanted others to define him. And at the end of the day, he just wanted everyone to know that he lived a life of servitude. Just hearing him and seeing the video, it reminded me. It illuminated in my mind what I wanted myself to be. I wanted others to think of me as Jonathan Hill, the man living the life of servitude, the guy who did his homework, the guy who put in the hard work, not just for himself, but others as well. And that's what Urban Alliance has done for me. So I stress to all current and future employers of Urban Alliance interns to be prepared to make the crucial impact on a young person's life. We not only ask for you all to be just our supervisors, but our mentors as well. Yes, the paycheck is a pivotal piece of the process. And yes, we also need the support from a great organization. But there's something in between. There's a moment that we need you all to connect with us. Surface relationships are not enough anymore. Urban Alliance interns do not refer to you all as supervisors. We really need that bond, that relationship between one another. By doing so, you create that passion, you push us forward, you empower us to not only pursue a higher education, but just to become a better person. So, let me just illuminate to you all what that looks like. I've become a better worker because of Urban Alliance and my mentors. I feel supported in my field of study, double major poli-sci and journalism. And I've gained more from the holistic experience in those 8 hours that I served at work than I would anywhere else. As I leave you here today as an Urban Alliance alum, it is only right for me to leave you with 4 notes. Continue to have these critical conversations, bringing the youth into the workforce. Pursue healthy relationships with your interns, not just as supervisors, but like I said, as mentors. We need you all. Be the change agent we need and empower us to pursue a higher education. And lastly, create an experience that will enhance our passion in the field of study. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the United States Vice President, Joe Biden.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Good morning. Please sit down. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, backstage, Jonathan was telling me that he's a Morehouse man. And I told him that I've been to Morehouse, and when I was in high school and college, I worked in the east side of Wilmington, awful lot of my friends, and I got so tired of hearing the debates between what's better, Morehouse or Morgan State, from Spencer Henry and my buddies, that I got to tell you, Jonathan, I think Delaware State University is the best. But I tell you what, man, Jonathan, keep me in mind, because I don't know what I'm going to do in 2 years, but I may be looking for a job. So remember me. Just remember me. When they tell you Joe Biden's at the door, don't say Joe who, okay? That's the only thing I ask you. Tom, it's good to see you, pal. And Jock, thank you for greeting me, and the Chamber for hosting this. And the Urban Alliance leaders, Nathaniel and Shauna and the whole, and my good friend Tom Nides. I told Tom, I saw him back there, I said, come home, Tom, we need you at the State Department. But by the way, there's something, Tom, I noticed. Everybody who leaves the administration looks a heck of a lot better. You know what I mean? They dress better, everything seems to be working, they don't have any stress in their face. I don't know what the story is. And I want to thank Andrew and Mary and Amy for the great job that you've done in Urban Alliance, which I've only recently become acquainted with in terms of this chapter. You're focusing on one of the most critical junctures for young people at age 16 to 24, 18 to 24. If you're out of work and out of school, it doesn't bode well statistically for you when you're going to be 35 and 45. So this new jobs report out this morning hopefully is going to provide a lot more opportunities. There's some good news. Through the grit and determination of the American people and the ingenuity and imagination of American business, more than 10 million private sector jobs have now been created, 55 straight months. Continues the longest streak in American history, and 248,000 jobs this month. And also, I'm told, the last 2 months have been estimated up from what they were. Unemployment rate below 6%, 5.9%. It was 10%. That's a good thing. You can clap for that. And by the way, I want to make clear, we're not taking credit for all this. I meant what I said about the ingenuity of the marketplace. I meant what I said about the way in which the American people have shown such incredible grit and determination. But combine that with the fact that we've reduced the federal deficit as share of GDP by 50%, the fastest rate since the end of World War II. And the economy is covering, and so there's all reason to celebrate. The economy is covering on a macroeconomic sense. But below the surface here, there's a lot of discontent still, a lot of discontent. Middle class isn't moving like it should. The middle class is taking it hard, not just the last 8-10 years, but it's been somewhat in decline since the mid-90s or the mid-80s, and we've got to do something about it. We needed everything we can to get folks back in the pathway to the middle class. You know, if you look at the average middle class wage since 2002 to today, it's gone up 14 cents. 14 cents. So there's a reason there's discontent out there. With all this good news and where the stock market is and total wealth of the nation over $87 trillion, et cetera, people are still hurting. You say, well, Joe, what does that have to do with what we're all here today? Well, I think it has a whole hell of a lot to do with it. It has to do with setting down pathways to get to the middle class so people are in a position to be able to have a shot. Because in order to lead the world economically, in my view, in the 21st century, we have to do two things. Two things we're not doing enough of, and there is bipartisan consensus by the vast majority of Democrats and Republicans to do it. We just can't get out of this sort of rut we're in terms of the dysfunction of this town. One is we need to invest significantly more in infrastructure. I know the Chamber's been pushing that and leading that effort, but, businesses go where productivity rests, and productivity is related to infrastructure. And as the Society of Engineers points out, we need over $3 trillion in infrastructure improvements just by the year 2020. So there's a lot to do and tremendous opportunities if we grab hold of it. But the second thing we have to do is we have to have the most skilled workforce in the world. Tom, you and I have talked about this. Matter of fact, you talked about it before most people did. America is, I don't know how many discussions have probably taken place in this room. I had one a while ago, Tom, with you all. You were kind enough to invite me, where we talked about basically is China going to lead the world in the 21st century economically? And I remember 10 years ago, are we going to be able to compete with the Eurozone? Raise your hand in here if anybody thinks we're going to have trouble competing with either in the next 10 to 12 years. Folks, it's very important that the Eurozone succeed. It's very important that China succeeds. It's in our interest they do that. But folks, in terms of who's best positioned in the 21st century to lead the world economically, it's not close. North America is and will continue to be the remainder of the first half of this century the epicenter of energy in the world. Not epicenter of energy in the hemisphere, in the world. In the world. We find ourselves in a position where we still have the most imaginative venture capitalists in the world. We have the greatest research university. We have the most productive workers in the world. American workers, by every reputable study, shows they're 3 times as productive as, for example, workers in China. And we find ourselves in a position where if we put these last 2 pieces together, people are going to continue to be coming home. You know, we don't hear, when's the last time you heard the word outsourcing? We went through a whole generation with all we talked about was outsourcing. And we had great political fights about whether or not we should interfere, impact, legitimate philosophic disagreements. Now, we're going to be fighting about insourcing. What do we do about it? Because folks are coming home. A.T. Kearney report, largest, I think it's 500 industrialists they do worldwide. America is the best place to invest in the world by a margin larger than any time since they have kept statistics in every category. from manufacturing, every single category. Boston Consulting Group is not the only one, but does a survey every year of those invested in, pick China. Companies invested in China, the manufacturing facilities, 54% this year when asked, they asked the same question every year, what are your plans for next year? We're considering coming home. So folks, there's going to be a great, great opportunity if we're smart. But we've got to do two things. We've got to do two things. And again, they shouldn't be difficult except anywhere in the world but this town. And that is infrastructure and have the most highly skilled workforce in the world. And that's where the Urban Alliance comes in. Your private sector partners are key to the second point, building a skilled workforce. Even when the economy was doing well in the 90s, you understood, the Urban Alliance, that young people were still twice as likely to be unemployed as the overall population. Young black men were 4 times as likely to be unemployed, and young Hispanics were 3 times as likely to be unemployed. Then along came that god-awful recession that decimated opportunities for everybody initially, but particularly for young people. Unemployment rate among young people ages 16 to 19 increased nearly 70%. From 2007 to 2009, it went from 16 to 26.8%. During that same period, the unemployment rate for young people 20 to 24 increased 80%, from 8.7 to 15.8%. And even as the economy recovers, it's estimated that 6.7 young people ages 16 to 24 are not going to be able to obtain the skills and work experience they need to succeed because they're neither in school nor in a job. You know, to use that old expression, this isn't rocket science. It's the foundation you have surely impacts on disproportionately the prospects you have. And so when you're in a situation where you are neither in school nor have a job at that critical moment in your life, it doesn't bode well for your prospects. But you've never taken your eye off the ball. You're fixing a broken pipeline, that pipeline that between 16 and 24. You've been working on it since '79. You've fixed it. You're fixing it. And you're equipping young people, as you just saw from Jonathan, with the skills they need to climb the ladder to a good paying middle-class job. Take the internship and partnerships that you created with business and with government. It's been a huge success. My numbers, I'm told that since '96, 1,500 young people have gone through the internship program. 100% graduated from high school, 75% enrolled in college, and 80% of these students have stayed in college. Today, a very critical statistic, not just enrolling, but staying. You have built a strong alumni network. So students like Jonathan don't graduate from a program. They instead invest back into the success of the program by donating their time and becoming mentors themselves. Because the other thing we know from experience in a whole range of subjects, the people who most influence young people are young people, their peers. Your graduates are going to tell you, and you heard it today, I know you know it, I'm not telling you anything, that they've obtained a better job, better wages than their peers who haven't had the same opportunity. Everyone from the Office of Personal Management, led by Catherine, Catherine, you here? I can't see out there. There you go. You're doing a great job for us, by the way. Led by Catherine, to the World Bank, and companies large and small have benefited from the Urban Alliance interns. And every single one of those interns learned skills that is going to last them a lifetime. How to work well with others, how to pay attention to detail, how to communicate in a professional environment. They're being exposed. They're being exposed to in-demand fields, such as information technology and business, and to people in those fields who show them how to pursue the future they once thought was out of reach. I thought Jonathan was interesting. He said, don't just mentor me, don't just show me how to do it, help me out, be my friend, give me a little confidence. That's basically what you were saying, as I read it. But it's true, and you know how it works. It works that way with every one of your colleagues, whether or not, when they come into your operation, whether or not they are coming out of a deprived circumstance or they're graduating from a great university with privilege. It's the same thing. It really isn't. It's hard, but it's not that hard. And what you've done is teach them. I had an old friend who was a great basketball player, played with Reardon and Walker, and anyway, he was a great ball player. His name was Pete McLaughlin. And Pete passed away, a young man, when he was 50, but Pete wasn't the sharpest academic candle on the table, but he was a smart guy. And Pete used to have an expression that I think is appropriate. And Jonathan, you might want to use it. He played at Providence College. You can go to Morehouse. But he used to say, you got to know how to know. Let me say it again. You got to know how to know. Now, those of us who come from backgrounds where our parents gave us real opportunities, we learned how to know without knowing we were learning. It was just part of the fabric of what we did. By know how to know, I mean, I can walk you into the Library of Congress. Unless you know how to go to the computer and use a card catalog, it doesn't matter to you. You got to know how to get to what you need. And that's the incredible thing I think the Urban Alliance is doing. And so when I was asked by the President in the State of the Union to put together a program on workforce training, so we would end up with, in the coming years, the best trained workforce in the world, I literally took a look at your program, and we looked all over. We went to every initiative that was going on in the country to try to get a sense of what worked and what didn't work. And when we looked at you guys, we made it became pretty clear that you had the basic ingredients to how to help people in this cadre that I've described have the best shot. The kind of partnerships the Urban Alliance bills are the kind of partnerships that we need all across the country, between businesses, unions, nonprofits, education systems. Look, you know that 6 out of every 10 jobs in the next 10 years are going to require something beyond a high school diploma. It can be a 15-week certificate at a community college. It can be a 2-year associate's degree, a 4-year degree, or a PhD. But they need something beyond high school. Just consider the following in the study we did. Information technology. We're going to need 1.4 million jobs are needed over the next 10 years in IT. From software developers, average salary $68,000 a year, typically needs a bachelor's degree. Computer network specialist, average salary $59,000 a year, do not need a college degree, but a 2-year degree. You know, I was out at UST Global. I was out in, I went all around the country to take a look at some of the programs that were going on. And I went to Detroit, which is just getting off its knees. I mean, Detroit has been battered. And there's an outfit out, not there, it's a national outfit called UST Global. And they're, in a sense, they do more than this, but part of what they do is they're a placement operation for large IT and small IT firms. I think you guys here at the Chamber know them. So they asked me to come by this program they had going on at a community college in inner city in Detroit. And I walked in, and there was I think it was don't hold me, I think it was a 15-week program. And it was a group of women from the neighborhood or from the hood. Every one of these women, their youngest was 24, I believe, and the oldest was 58. And there were about 24 of them. And they had 2 more weeks to go. And what they were learning is they were learning computer programming. These are people with high school degrees coming out of the most hard-scrapple neighborhoods, every one of them, in Detroit. Every one had a job. The lowest starting salary, $58,000. The highest, $81,000. because in Detroit, there's an immediate need now for 1,000 programmers in the city now. Every one of those women has a job, average job, $65,000 a year. Healthcare. We need 64,000 dental hygienists in the near term. Average salary, $70,000 a year. Median salary, I should say. Can be trained by community colleges. Registered nurses, we're short over 638,000 registered nurses in America. Average salary, $65,000 to $75,000 a year. Psychiatric nurses, 300,000 women and men coming home from Afghanistan and Iraq with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. Salary, $85,000 a year. And it can be an internship on the job while you are working as a registered nurse. Advanced manufacturing. You guys at the Commerce, at the Chamber know this a bit better than anybody. The need for 100,000 jobs going unfilled right now, right this minute in the United States of America, the companies that have returned or that never left and are expanding. In high school manufacturing. Some require bachelor's degrees, very few. Some 2 years degree, but most of them just require training that's somewhere between 3 months and 6 months. Dow Kokum out in Michigan built a facility out there, needed 1,000 employees, found out they couldn't find people with photovoltaic technology to operate their machines. They're doing things having to do with solar shingles. So with a federal grant, teamed up with a local community college, brought in their managers, their machines, off the factory floor into the community college, and created a conveyor belt. Average salary starting $54,000 a year, if memory serves me. The point is, there are incredible opportunities for workers, but also for business, and for young people. But we need to build partnerships that figure out what local employers are looking for and find ways to equip people with the skills. So there's this need out here, not just in IT, but I'm not going to bore you the rest of the report, but there's this enormous need that business has, looking for skilled employees. There's this enormous pool of Americans who want to work. The one thing I do not agree with is my friends in the Congress and other places suggest the American people don't work. They didn't come from the neighborhood I come from. I don't know anybody who doesn't want to work given a fair shot. And there is this gap between the skills needed and the workers knowing what skills needed and how to figure out how to get those skills, where to get them and how to pay to get them. And that's what working with the Chamber and the federal government and local governments and community colleges we're beginning to do. That's why early this week I announced a $450 million investment in competitive grants to 71 partnerships between community colleges and businesses all over the United States of America, including partners like organized labor. The partnerships provide a seamless transition so folks can move from the classroom directly to a job that they can raise their family on. We have a big fight, I know, about minimum wage. I won't get into that with you all here, but I think you're all dead wrong about minimum wage. But that's a different deal, okay? I got it. But these aren't minimum wage jobs. These are jobs you can actually maybe own a home and not rent. Live in a neighborhood, maybe you can send your kid to the park. You don't have to worry about him getting beat up. Send their kid to a school that if they did well, they got a shot to get to college. If they get into college, you're going to figure out a way to get them there. And maybe in the meantime, you may be able to take care of your geriatric mom or dad because one of your parents has died. And hope that maybe you won't have your children not have to take care of you. That's middle class, man. That's all it is. But that's everything it is. That's everything it is. And so I don't look at what you all are doing the Urban Alliance just is figuring getting kids, sort of off the street, off the corner. That's important. You're getting them on a pathway where they may be able to live that life. I know I'm referred to as middle-class Joe because I talk about the middle class so much, but and I know in this town, it's not a compliment. To say you're middle class means you're not sophisticated. But middle class is what built this country, and it's the social glue that holds the country together. And so we got to figure more ways to find pathways for people to get there. Think of the employers, the employees who feel they're in a dead-end job, or those partnerships provide pathways to better jobs. Think of the workers who are just getting started and hungry to learn a new skill, move up the ladder. Those partnerships you're providing help them get there. I'll give you a couple more examples. Monroe College, which is up in Rochester, New York. Rochester, New York, I used to go to Syracuse University, a lot of my friends from Rochester. When I was growing up and as a young man, Rochester was a vibrant middle-class city. It had Kodak, which had, I'm not sure the number, about 35,000 employees, I think. Nobody had a minimum wage job, all really good paying jobs, a lot of engineers, a lot of people making a really good salary. Had Bausch and Lomb, it had, a number of other operations. Well, it fell on some hard times. And, Kodak stopped not only making brownies, stopped making film. And I think they're down to well under 10,000 employees. Bausch and Lomb the same way. And so the optic industry has, in the meantime, changed radically as well. That's why they're in trouble. They didn't adapt. And so what happened was this Monroe Community College, on their own initiative, went out and surveyed businesses. I think it was 200 businesses in the two-county area. Many of them still engaged in optics. For example, the Mars rover, the lens on the Mars rover is made by one of the small companies in that city. And what they found out was that these businesses needed employees. So they partnered with a bunch of these businesses and with the community college, and they set up apprenticeship programs. The jobs paying $60,000 a year, all high school graduates. No one with any advanced degrees, all high school graduates. And they're transforming the community. Consider the apprenticeship program that Ford and UAW created together, which gives workers a chance to earn while they learn. After they complete the program, workers earn about $68,000 a year if they work 40 hours a week, and is upwards to $100,000 a year if they have overtime. Partnerships are good for workers. They're good for business, and they're good for the economy. And we need more. And we're looking at all of you in the private sector to get more engaged and build more of these partnerships. Because here's what I know for certain. The American people, they want to work. They want a fair chance. They don't want any guarantees. My dad would say, I don't want the government to give me anything. I just want them to understand my problem. Just at least understand my problem. Don't give me anything, just understand my problem. Well, you all understand your needs. And I'm preaching to the choir here because you're in here, you understand the problem. And given a fair chance, the American people have never, ever, ever, ever let their country down. They're the reason why it's never a good idea, as I think you reminded me, Tom, my saying to President Hu and Vice President Xi when they were commiserating about how they think America will come back. I pointed out it's never, never, never been a good bet to bet against America. Never. Never. And so, folks, because of what the Urban Alliance is doing and a lot of other alliances like it all across the nation, and what I consider, I come from, and I'll conclude with this, I come from what used to facetiously be referred to when I got elected as age 29 and 72, the state of DuPont. I come from the corporate state of America. I have dealt with and had alliances with major business my entire career. And I think there's a lot of things going on here. And one thing that's going on is business is beginning to figure out how to deal with the new realities of the 21st century in a way that, as it becomes more apparent, they see the possibilities of partnering like you're doing right here with the Urban Alliance. It's ultimately about growing that pie, so everybody does well. I compliment the Chamber for their involvement. I compliment the Alliance, and I compliment you all for taking so much time to be engaged. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a fascinating place, and we have political and economic discussions and debates here morning, noon, and night. We come together today with all of the people the Vice President complimented and with his encouragement and leadership to do something we all agree on, and that's put Americans to work. And so, Mr. Vice President, I want to thank you for your leadership on this. I want to continue to invite you to come back for the debates we like to have, and I will start looking around for what you might do in 2 years.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, everybody.